Translator, Henyi Translations, Editor Henyi Translations. Listen well. When two 10th-tier spirit tools collide, the heavens do not grant mercy to both. The first few clashes may pass like brief thunder over distant peaks, leaving no obvious mark, but strike again and again and again and the truth will surface. After enough exchanges, one side must suffer damage, and if the quality of both spirit tools is close, if neither yields even a hair, then both will bear scars in the end. That law did not belong only to weapons, it also belonged to bodies. Ling Han's physique, honed until it rivaled 10th-tier rare gold, was indeed terrifying. Yet even such a body could be wounded by a 10th-tier spirit tool, could be cut, could be torn, could even be severed if the blade landed true, and the one wielding that blade was Wu Gaoyuan. Wu Gaoyuan's battle prowess was simply too fierce. His treasured sword screamed through the air like a cruel comet, and in only a handful of slashes, Ling Han was already spilling blood in violent bursts. Even a physique forged like 10th-tier rare metal could not withstand that relentless cutting forever. Wu Gaoyuan threw back his head and laughed, his voice echoing like arrogance made into sound. "Ha! Tough guy! Why don't you keep talking tough again?" Ling Han's eyes remained calm, his expression as steady as an ancient stone tablet. "This isn't tough talk," he replied, tone indifferent, as if stating a plain fact. "It's strength." As he spoke, he operated the indestructible Heaven's Scroll. In an instant, the wounds on his body began to heal on their own, closing with a speed that defied common sense. If the injuries had not been carved by a shattering Void-tier elite, then the diamond body alone could have restored them without assistance. But Wu Gaoyuan was precisely that kind of enemy, an elite whose strikes carried martial intent. Martial intent was not merely force. It was a will engraved into the slash itself, a presence that could lodge inside torn flesh like a curse. It could obstruct the diamond body's natural recovery, preventing the body from knitting back together cleanly. Thus Ling Han had to circulate the indestructible Heaven's Scroll to expel Wu Gaoyuan's martial intent from the wounds. Only then could true recovery follow, and follow it did. At a shocking pace, Ling Han recovered completely. His blood and qi surged back, exuberant and blazing, as if they could burn the very skies. The air around him seemed to swell with renewed vitality, like a furnace reignited. What? The moment that scene unfolded, the watching crowd turned speechless. What kind of recovery ability was this? A formidable physique could be slowly refined and feared if it simply could not be harmed. But a physique this hard, paired with such absurd recovery, what answer could anyone find for that combination? Wu Gaoyuan's gaze sharpened, his sneer cutting colder than his blade. "Humph. Recovery like that. Can you really keep using it endlessly?" He refused to believe it. In his heart, he was certain such terrifying restoration must have a limit. It had to consume an outrageous amount of energy. Sooner or later, it would falter. Sooner or later, it would fail. With that belief as fuel, he attacked like a mad storm, slashing again and again, trying to force Ling Han to reach that unseen boundary. Many of the spectators nodded, agreeing with his logic. Such a shocking recovery could not possibly be maintained forever. It had to drain him. And besides, there was no need to wait for the recovery to vanish completely. As long as the healing speed could not keep up with the destructive power, Ling Han would still die. A single moment of imbalance would be enough, yet reality chose to mock their expectations. Ling Han stood up again and again and again. No matter how the wind blew, no matter how the sword howled, he was like a boulder planted in the river of battle, unyielding, unmoved. Each time he was struck down, he rose once more, eyes clear, posture steady, aura roaring back as if refusing to acknowledge defeat. Wu Gaoyuan refused to accept what he was seeing. He insisted, again and again, that the next move would be the one, that the next slash would finally push Ling Han beyond recovery. But time after time, he tasted disappointment. Ling Han stood up, again and again. This! Wu Gaoyuan's strength was clearly superior. Superior not by a little, but by an overwhelming margin. And yet, against this freakish opponent, he had no way to finish the matter. He could strike Ling Han down repeatedly, could paint the ground with blood, could shred flesh and cloth, and still he could not see the possibility of killing him for good. On the side of the 8 kings, exhilaration finally broke through their tense faces. In the beginning, they truly believed the 5 sects would take them this time, and the 5 sects' personalities were well known. Once they gave their word, they would keep it. If the wager was lost, the 8 kings would have to accept that those sects would not sortie any soldiers for the next 100 years. Nothing could be done about a lost wager. But keeping a promise, especially one bound to the pride of such forces, was obviously greater than anything else. Yet now, this was an unexpected rescue pulled from the jaws of desperation. Ling Han might not be able to win outright, but as long as he did not lose, this match would end in a draw, and the entire wager would also become a draw. If it was a draw, then the 8 kings obviously would not need to keep the promise of not moving any troops for 100 years. Even Ma Duobao, who had watched with the gaze of an emperor accustomed to storms, nodded slightly. He had known Ling Han was remarkable, but he had never expected him to be this remarkable. Across from them, on the side of the 5 sects, every face was dark as thunderclouds. They had deliberately pretended weakness earlier. They had lured Ma Duobao into agreeing to the wager, drawing him into a trap with lowered guard and carefully staged impressions. Victory had been so close they could taste it. Who would have thought that, at this final edge, such a freak would come charging out and ruin everything? 9 battles ending in a draw. Would Ma Duobao agree not to take the field himself? Damn it! This damned brat. The 5 sects all hated Ling Han in that moment. If this battle truly ended in a draw, then Ling Han would become the mortal enemy of the 5 sects. Worse still, this child's cultivation was only in the deity transformation tier. If a deity transformation tier warrior could do this, then what would happen when he crossed into the shattering void tier? Would there be anyone left in the world who could suppress him? Wu Gaoyuan was driven nearly mad by humiliation. He was conceited. After all, a genius from the divine realm naturally looked down on the people of the lower realm. This time, the 5 great divine sects had paid a tremendous price, sending 5 shattering void-tier elites down in order to turn the tides. But now, a mere deity transformation-tier warrior had stopped him. If word of this returned to the divine realm, what face would he have to meet others? How could he ever stand proudly again? He brandished his treasured sword and kept slashing at Ling Han, swearing in his heart to annihilate him into pieces. Futile. Ling Han was not an indestructible diamond body. He could still be injured. He bled, he was cut, he was torn. Yet his recovery rate left people speechless. Unless someone possessed the ability to destroy Ling Han's vitals in a single strike, Ling Han would never be defeated by being worn down like this. He would simply keep fighting on, standing back up as if his body refused to accept the concept of collapse. Wu Gaoyuan had already used all his strength. He had acquired the sword heart, yet he had never reached the level of illumination. He attempted to use that sword heart to destroy Ling Han's soul, yet Ling Han was not weaker than him in this regard. Ling Han had also reached sword heart, and he would even soon reach great mastery. So the two fought fiercely, their wills grinding against each other like blades on whetstone, sparks of intent flashing in every exchange. 1 day passed, 2 days passed, and then 3 days passed. Ling Han was injured countless times, yet looking at him, one could hardly tell. The only visible change lay in something almost absurd, the many sets of clothes he swapped into over the course of the fight. It could not be helped. The indestructible Heaven's Scroll could restore flesh and expel intent, but it could not recover torn fabric, and a new set of clothes could only be changed when the previous one had been shredded beyond repair. At last, Ma Duobao spoke, his voice calm but heavy with authority. Although there's no time limit, the fight can't go on endlessly. Enough. This match ends in a draw. How could it possibly be a draw? The 5 sects immediately erupted in protest, unwilling to swallow it. One voice after another shouted their objections. Wu Gaoyuan clearly has the absolute advantage. The Lunar King sneered, sharp and mocking. Having the advantage is the same as winning? Then his eyes narrowed with cold amusement. Ling Han is only in the deity transformation tier, yet he's been able to fight a shattering void tier opponent for 3 days. By that logic, this king can say Ling Han has won. Ma Duobao stepped forward a few paces. His presence alone seemed to press down on the battlefield like a mountain. "This Emperor says that this match is a draw," he declared. "Who has any objections?" "I have!" A person from the 5 sects jumped out. He was also at the Shattering Void tier, yet only at the 3rd layer. Ma Duobao merely glanced at him. Then he casually waved his right hand, endless killing intent intertwined in the air, weaving into a terrifying radiance, and with a blunt, final sound, poo, that Shattering Void tier elite was swept by a ball of light and instantly split apart. Blood splattered, and even the mountains seemed to shiver under the shock. This time, the Shattering Void tier elite did not stand up again. His presence dispersed rapidly. He died. In a single attack, an elite at the 3rd layer of the Shattering Void tier was killed from such a distance that it felt unreal. It was like taking the general's head from within hundreds of thousands, as if plucking something from one's pocket. Easy, smooth, almost pleasant. This was the strength of the Purple Moon Empire's #1 expert. Ma Duobao did not even spare the corpse another glance. He simply spoke again, indifferent as frost. "Who else has objections?" On the 5 sect side, silence fell like a curtain. Even those as strong as Zuo Qifang and the 3 others did not dare resist Ma Duobao head-on. Whispers rippled through the minds and mouths of the onlookers. "Shattering Void tier, 20 stars of battle prowess?" Definitely. How could a human achieve Shattering Void tier 20 stars of battle prowess? Even offspring of divine beasts, descendants of saints, only a mere few can reach such heights. Damn it, if this were the divine realm, the sect could send anyone to kill him. Zuo Qifang and the 3 others communicated in soft voices, their thoughts calculating like blades hidden in sleeves. They were judging whether the 5 of them together could stop Ma Duobao. Even if they could. Who would block the 8 kings? Then, without warning, an old man stepped forth, lightning flashing across the surface of his body, crackling like a living storm. He hurled an axe fiercely toward Zuo Qifang. "Wu Gaoyuan, take the axe." It was the Mountain River axe, not an imitation, the true Mountain River axe, bearing on its surface the realm power that had created it. If that axe came down in a single ruthless arc, would even 10th tier rare metal be cut directly in two? Translator credit, Henyi Translations. Editor credit, Henyi Translations. Now listen. When a weapon is born from the very laws that regulate a realm, what kind of ruin can it carve into the world? The Mountain and River axe was such a thing. The moment Wu Gaoyuan's fingers closed around that axe, his laughter thundered out without restraint, as if the sky itself had just agreed to his arrogance. In the immortal realm, he knew the truth. This axe might only be called invincible among those in the Shattering Void tier, and it certainly didn't deserve the grand heavenly title of a god tool. But here, down in this lower realm, its presence was a tyrant's decree. As a spirit tool, it stood at the very peak. There was nothing else that could truly contend with it. And with such a blade in Wu Gaoyuan's hands, how could Ling Han possibly still live? Yet before that doom could be decided, a cold voice cut across the air like winter steel. Ma Duobao's lips curled into a faint, mocking smirk. "Ho, shameless indeed," he said, the contempt in his tone sharper than any edge. He lifted a finger and swept it outward. In the space between Ling Han and Wu Gaoyuan, the earth itself obeyed. A deep, unmistakable line was carved across the ground, an invisible boundary made visible by power. And with it came a killing intent so terrifying it felt like a blade pressed against every throat present. Even someone as fierce as Wu Gaoyuan, even with pride boiling in his chest, did not dare step over that mark. The members of the 5 sects immediately spoke up, their words polished like court etiquette, yet their intent was a trap laid in silk. "Your Majesty," they said, "what is the meaning of this? Could it be that you intend to ruin our wager?" Ma Duobao did not flare up. He did not need to. His calm was the calm of a lion watching lambs argue over whose teeth were sharper. "Since you've gone so far as to reveal the Mountain and River axe," he replied evenly, "then I will no longer hold back with you either." Then he paused, raised his voice, and called out with unmistakable authority, "Ling Han, hand that sword over to me." That sword? In an instant, understanding struck Ling Han like a bell tolling inside his spirit. Ma Duobao wasn't talking about just any weapon. He meant the Revere life sword, the blade Ma Duobao had personally forged with his own hands. Ling Han didn't hesitate. With a flick of his right hand, he summoned the Revere Life Sword out from the Black Tower. The weapon appeared as if drawn from a hidden world, and Ling Han immediately hurled it toward Ma Duo Bao. Truthfully, Ling Han had never planned to use that sword in this battle. Against a foe with the battle prowess of 18 stars in the Shattering Void tier, even if the Revere Life Sword were completely awakened, it wouldn't change the cruel mathematics of power by much. But Ma Duo Bao was Ma Duo Bao. He caught the sword, then traced it with a few light strokes, casual, almost gentle, as if he were brushing dust from an old keepsake. And the sword answered him. The patterns along its body lit up at once, lines and symbols blazing as though a sleeping dragon had opened its eyes. It wasn't merely revived. It surged beyond its former state, becoming far stronger than it had been. Ma Duo Bao gave a quiet chuckle, as if amused that the world still bothered pretending this could be surprising. Then he tossed the Revere Life Sword back to Ling Han, like a master returning a tool to its rightful bearer. Ling Han's hand closed around the hilt, and a feeling rose inside him that nearly made even his own heart tremble. So strong. It wasn't just confidence, it was a roaring certainty, an invincible certainty, as if the sword had poured a fearless will into his veins. For one breath, Ling Han genuinely felt that even if immortals descended from above, he could still cut them down. Ma Duo Bao waved his hand again. The carved boundary on the ground vanished, as though it had never existed. The oppressive killing intent dispersed into nothing, like fog erased by sunlight. A brief, strange note seemed to flicker through the scene, like a passing sign. You're reading on read.com. Thanks. Wu Gaoyuan let out a disdainful snort. A sword? Did Ling Han truly believe a sword alone would let him stand against an immortal realm prodigy? In Wu Gaoyuan's eyes, the difference between them was vast beyond counting. His battle prowess towered over Ling Han's by an unknown margin, and now, with the mountain and river axe added on top of that, it would be effortless to cleave Ling Han apart. His feet stamped forward, and he charged again, swinging the axe down with murderous certainty. Ling Han lifted his blade. Shua! Swordlight burst outward like a furious river of cold radiance, and killing intent boiled from it in waves. This single strike carried terror. Wu Gaoyuan did not possess Ling Han's terrifying physique, nor Ling Han's recovery that could claw him back from ruin again and again. He could not afford to take such an attack head-on. In a flash, he twisted his stance and brought up the mountain and river axe to block. Peng! The collision cracked through the air with a deafening bang. Killing intent spilled outward like a storm breaking its restraints, and yet Wu Gaoyuan's axe did not shatter Ling Han's sword light. It didn't destroy it. It was blocked. What? Shock rippled through the crowd, voices bursting out in disbelief. That was the mountain and river axe. An existence condensed from the power of an entire realm. Add Wu Gaoyuan's own strength on top of that, and by all logic, he should have cleaved Ling Han's sword light apart with one strike. His counter should have been unstoppable, impossible to resist. After all, the gap between them should have been absurdly large. And yet the result stood before everyone's eyes. Wu Gaoyuan's counter was checked, stopped, held back. How could this be possible? What kind of sword is that? Someone cried. It can actually contend with the mountain and river axe. Another voice followed, struggling to make sense of it. Wu Gaoyuan has 18 stars of Shattering Void battle prowess. With the mountain and river axe, his power should leap straight up to 20 stars. And Ling Han blocks him with nothing but a sword? This is madness. Only the 8 kings wore expressions of quiet pride, as if this outcome was merely the world finally remembering who stood above common sense. That sword was forged by their boss, by someone whose strength had already surpassed what ordinary people believed possible. Wu Gaoyuan's face darkened. His black hair seemed to bristle, rising as if fury itself had seized each strand. He clenched his teeth until it looked like they might crack. I don't believe it. He snarled. He was an immortal realm prodigy, proud and proven. He stood a full 2 tiers above Ling Han, and he held a weapon as terrifying as the mountain and river axe. Yet here he was, unable to crush a mere deity transformation tier cultivator. Ling Han only smiled faintly. Because Ling Han understood what Wu Gaoyuan did not. In truth, Ling Han wasn't the one commanding this power. The Revere Life Sword had awakened on its own, Ling Han's swings were almost performance. The motion of his arm, the stance of his body, those were like an actor's gestures. The real authority belonged to the blade itself. It was as though the sword was ordering him around, not the other way around. And after Ma Duobao's subtle tricks, the sword hadn't merely awakened. It had become 10 times stronger than before, so let the fight drag on. Ling Han wasn't pouring out his own energy in some desperate struggle. He was simply completing the movements while the sword did the work. Whether the battle lasted a short while or stretched into a long grind, it made little difference to him. But just as that thought settled, a new voice drifted in, light and teasing, like someone strolling into a tavern brawl with a smile. "Tsk, tsk, tsk. How lively," the speaker said. "You don't mind if we join too, right?" From the foot of the mountain, another group emerged. At first glance, their faces were not monstrous, not deformed, yet every one of them felt wrong. The aura around them was eerie, heavy, and chilling, like the air that clings to a grave after it has been opened. Each step they took seemed to drag cold earth with it. It wasn't an illusion. They were the 1,000 Corpse sect. The 9th Underworld King was there, along with Corpse Boss, Corpse 2, and Ronghuanshuan. Ronghuanshuan, why was that man walking with the 1,000 Corpse sect? The moment they appeared, both Ling Han and Wu Gaoyuan halted. Continuing their duel now would mean nothing, not with new predators entering the hunting ground. Ma Duobao's gaze swept over the newcomers like a blade measuring meat. "So," he said, voice calm yet lethal, "the 1,000 Corpse sect is also rushing to die." Their timing was too precise to be coincidence. They hadn't wandered here by accident, as if lost on a road. That was impossible. They had come on purpose, and no one believed they had arrived merely to watch and enjoy the spectacle. So what was it? Had the 1,000 Corpse sect allied with the 5 sects? The 9th Underworld King threw back his head and laughed, loud and brazen, as if to smother fear beneath arrogance. Then he asked Ma Duobao directly, "Your Majesty, do you truly believe you are unmatched in this world?" Ma Duobao nodded, as if the question was almost silly. "Indeed," he answered plainly, without hesitation, without false humility. "I am number 1 in this world, and I will kill whoever refuses to acknowledge that truth. So tell me, do you acknowledge it or not?" The boast was enormous, the kind that would normally invite ridicule, but the 9th Underworld King couldn't find any honest way to refute it. In terms of strength, he was only comparable to the Sword King and the Beast Snake King. He couldn't even match the 8 kings, much less stand toe-to-toe with Ma Duobao himself. Yet at this moment, he could not allow morale to crumble. Not now, not in front of allies and enemies alike, so his smile sharpened into something cold. "Heh! I do not acknowledge it," he said. Then he stretched out a hand. Something scraped across the ground with a heavy metallic sound, and a copper coffin slid into view as if summoned from the underworld itself. The 3 lives, corpse casket, peng! The lid burst open. A corpse soldier sprang out, its posture stiff, its presence dreadful. And the most horrifying part was its face. It was crowded with eyes. Too many eyes. When people counted, their hearts lurched. 18 eyes. An 18-eyed Corpse King. How could that be possible? The 1,000 Corpse sect had schemed for several thousand years, and only then had they barely managed to produce a 15-eyed Corpse King. That had been the limit of their ambition, the peak of their painstaking plotting. Yet now, an 18-eyed Corpse King stood before them. Ling Han couldn't stop himself. His eyes shifted to Ronghuanshuan at once. This had to be tied to the 3 lives corpse casket. Had Ronghuanshuan struck some kind of deal with the 1,000 Corpse sect? Had he returned the 3 lives corpse casket to them? And with all 3 treasures assembled, had that completeness triggered a transformation? A metamorphosis that pushed their Corpse Kings beyond what should have been possible? Ma Duobao looked at the 18-eyed Corpse King and laughed, truly laughed, as if he'd been offered a child's toy as a threat. His small eyes narrowed into slits. He looked harmless, almost comical. Yet the killing intent pouring out from his body was so terrifying it made blood feel icy in every vein around him. People who had watched countless battles still felt their insides turn cold. After all, Ma Duobao possessed the battle prowess of 20 stars in the Shattering Void tier. He was, without question, the strongest person in this world, who could truly remain fearless standing before him. "You think you can stop me with only that?" Ma Duobao said, still laughing, as if the idea was delightful. But the pressure didn't come only from the coffin. From the side, the elites of the 5 sects stepped forward as well. "Have you forgotten us, your majesty?" they said. They revealed their full force. 5 ultimate elites, each possessing 18 stars of Shattering Void battle prowess. And beyond their cultivation, they also held a deadly advantage. A weapon like the mountain and river axe, a tool of terrifying, realm-born destruction. Ma Duobao's expression sharpened. The domineering aura of a ruler rose openly now. "You?" he said, voice turning cold. "A flock of lambs. No matter how many gather together, how could lambs ever match a lion?" The insult hit like a slap. Whether it was the 5 sects or the 1,000 Corpse sect, faces darkened with indignation. Yes, none of them alone possessed 20 stars of Shattering Void battle prowess. But they had numbers. They had elites. They had weapons and corpse kings and schemes layered over schemes. With so many Shattering Void tier powerhouses gathered together, how could they not kill one man by surrounding him? An antique of the 5 sects turned toward the 9th Underworld King, voice steady as if reciting an agreement already etched into stone. "Since you say so, 9th Underworld King, then do as we previously agreed. Let us work together." "All right," the 9th Underworld King replied without hesitation. Then he nodded toward Ronghuan Xuan. Ronghuan Xuan responded by summoning another copper coffin. Pang! The lid opened, and from within leapt another 18-eyed Corpse King. Now the truth behind their arrangement became clear. The 3 Lives corpse casket was made of 3 coffins. One was in the hands of the 9th Underworld King, while the other 2 remained with Ronghuan Xuan. Thankfully, if one could even use such a word, they had only produced 2 18-eyed Corpse Kings, but even 2 were enough to make the air feel heavy with doom, because their battle prowess was still terrifying. In that moment, the battlefield's balance shifted into something monstrous. 7 great elites, each with the battle prowess of 18 stars in the Shattering Void tier, had joined forces, and they all turned their combined might toward one man, Ma Duobao.